Welcome to another episode of the Pep Coach podcast. We're all pretty caffeinated at the moment.
Not yet.
I've got
About to be.
about to be. I've got this. I showed it to you before. It's called Attention. So it's got some nootropics in it. It's got some caffeine in it. You're having it for the first time.
Yeah.
Scotty's got a purple monster over there. We're all just a little bit caffeinated.
Yeah, I need it, man. I was just saying to you boys, I've got a cracker headache. So if I don't make sense, anything that comes out of my mouth today is null and void.
Well, I want to start with you because I want to hear all about IFBB on the weekend.
Yeah.
We obviously want to say congratulations.
Mhm.
Athletes did absolutely amazing.
Thank you.
Technically the first TMG athletes.
Definitely.
Yeah, since we've all joined. So congratulations, absolutely amazing. Tell us all about it.
Yeah, it was a great day. Hopefully anyone that was there got to see some of the TMG t-shirts rolling around either front of stage or backstage. But we had an awesome day. I think from the girls' point of view, the peak weeks were just perfect. They went exactly to plan. Few little things, that I'll touch on that we probably need to change or that we've learned from. But the show itself was amazing. Big congratulations obviously goes to Poppy, who, first IFBB show, did really well and took out the juniors, which was amazing.
Yeah.
And for her, it was more so just night and day from where she'd been in the past in terms of the package that she presented, which was, 12 kilos better than her last stage performance.
So last stage to this stage, weight.
12 kilos.
Jesus.
Yeah, 12 kilos. So
Wow.
night and day,
Yeah,
obviously. But it was more just the journey and post her doing really well. I ran backstage just because I was pretty excited. And I just knew that it was such an important moment. It wasn't about the result. It was just about being proud of what she presented.
Mhm.
And I knew that she was going to be ecstatic. And when I walked backstage, she was already like,
Oh yeah.
So it was just magical. And then Ash, she was razor sharp. She was right on the money and took out two novice and then just pipped in the overall, which was amazing. So
that's amazing though. First IFBB show.
yeah, she really really was on point. I think the thing that we sort of noticed with Ash is we were perfectly full, and then we probably just flattened out towards the open, and we also had some differences in the way that our back shot looked with the tan. So
Okay.
we were perfect for the first division. By the time we got to open, we'd lost that gloss right where the sort of glute to hamstring time was,
Mhm.
and it was actually one of the things that we got feedback about.
Oh really?
So we'd probably flattened out a little bit by then, and we'd lost that gloss. So it just from first division to the last, that back shot look changed. Not to say that would have made the difference. I'm not saying that at all, but yeah, just little things that.
That's an easy fix though.
Definitely little things that we're going to try and change for this week. Ash is doing South Australia IFBB on Sunday, which we're excited for.
Amazing.
But yeah, it was just an awesome day, awesome way to open up the season. Obviously, a new venue for them.
Yep.
Which I didn't quite get to soak it all in. There were some things that were awesome and some things that maybe they'll look at next time, just in terms of stage and backdrop and things like that. But for the athletes, I think it was an incredible experience. The athlete area pre-side stage pump up is big enough.
Mhm.
A lot of natural lighting, so you can get some really good shots, which
good.
I got some great shots.
Yep.
And then the athlete side stage area is huge.
Okay.
Really,
so
really.
they line up to get on stage?
Yeah, it's massive. It's this size.
Oh wow.
Yeah,
Okay.
really, really good.
Yeah.
And they're only bringing you in division by division. So imagine this amount of room for 8 people.
One division, yeah.
It's absolutely awesome. Toilets absolutely everywhere, which is great.
Yep.
So yeah, we had an awesome day, man.
That's amazing. Well, I think I told you that I only seen Poppy's stage video. I don't think I've seen Ash's yet. And Poppy's stage presence was amazing. She had a big smile on her face.
She was flawless.
Yeah, and the way she was doing her transitions, the hair, everything was flawless for her. So she should be really, really proud of herself.
Definitely.
And how she conducted herself on stage. I'm sure Ash was the same. I just haven't seen a video of hers yet. But the girls are amazing. So that's awesome. So
great way to kick things off.
do you want to talk about then, because Ash is now doing back-to-back weeks, do you want to talk a little bit about that? Because people are probably going to be in a similar boat to her throughout the season. Yeah,
for sure. So yeah, we took in quite a bit of food leading up to show day, as we do. And we did definitely achieve, what I think was, a good level of saturation for Ash finally on show day. So the plan for the week was to kind of start topping up because it was a Sunday show, like Wednesday, Thursday, and hope to have achieved the look perfectly by Saturday.
Mhm.
But we weren't quite there Saturday, so we're still a little bit short. So we took in a little bit extra than I'd originally planned to on Saturday. And I think we woke up bang on the money Sunday. As I said earlier, I don't think it quite lasted as long as I had have hoped. So, the plan this week was to get back to baseline as quickly as possible. So pretty much after show, it was get in, smash legs, cardio. She hasn't done a lot of cardio through the prep. She hasn't needed to do a lot, but we did introduce a little bit of the back end, but straight away onto cardio. And then the big thing was what did she wake up at? What weight was she on Tuesday when she woke up? Was kind of the big thing for me to see if she had returned back to baseline. And she woke up Tuesday, the lowest weight before we started carving up.
Okay. And this was a Sunday show, and she's doing a Saturday show coming
Sunday
up?
show.
Another Sunday.
Sunday to
Okay,
Sunday.
Sunday to Sunday. Okay. Because you don't lose any days there.
So she'd woken up at the same weight, but I think look to look was a little bit different. I think it was the same weight, but it didn't appear to be necessarily quite as sharp. This week.
Oh, this week, okay.
So we pushed it one more day.
Yeah.
And she actually woke up at her lowest ever weight. So we're going to start that top up process again.
Yeah, okay.
So it's basically rinse and repeat, but we just needed an extra day to get back to the look that I wanted. I thought it would happen a day sooner. It just, didn't quite there. And maybe Scott can speak as to, why that might happen to someone post taking in quite a bit of food on show day. And then, the big feedback for her was she was super sore from posing.
Oh, posing.
Super sore from posing, and potentially, the adrenaline, maybe a little bit of added cortisol and stuff as well, that the spike in weight was pretty substantial, but then also dropped really, really quickly too.
Did she have any post-show meal, anything like that, straight back into plan?
She had 200 grams of extra lean beef mince, 250 grams of veggies with rice and some coconut water, and then
straight into it. Perfect.
Yeah, and that meal, the feedback, she rang me in the car on the way home because she's traveling from Melbourne to Geelong. It was a real battle to finish that meal.
To get it in? Yeah.
Did she have a lot of sodium throughout the day though?
Yeah, so we took in 1.2 grams at breakfast. We did just one tab at meal 2. We did
1.2 grams of salt or of sodium?
We did 2 salt tabs, so 600. Yeah, we did 1 salt tab at the next meal, and then we did 1.2 grams acutely just before stage, about 45 minutes in.
Okay.
Yeah.
So then, Scotty, maybe you want to talk about, why does it take X amount of days to wash that weight off? What do we kind of want to do during that time? Are we changing our approach with sodium during that time? Are we getting to do cardio training? Are we changing? What are we doing during that time?
Well, it depends how much sodium was consumed over the day, and also above baseline. One of the things that I think a lot of coaches don't factor in, they're like, peak week, cool. Now I'm going to start playing with, some of the other, different elements. And if you don't have an idea of what baseline sodium levels are, or just in general, your electrolyte compositions, where's potassium, where's sodium, how do you know how you're going to manipulate that? Because you could be like, and you always use an example, because you're someone going to give this guy 3,500 megs on show morning, but that's like what you have in your breakfast.
That's what I used to have, yeah.
Sure. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So for your body, you're not getting that acute response. You're not getting that increase in plasma
just waking him up.
Exactly. So you're not getting that increase in blood pressure. So you're not getting the result from that. So you want to have an idea of where those baseline numbers are. So I'm guessing that whatever MG had given Ash, it was superseding what her baseline numbers were, and more or less within that time of the day as well. So you would think that as a result of that, she's got elevated blood sodium levels, but eventually what comes up will start to come down. So likely towards the end of the day, start to get an increase in, osmoreceptors and her thirst receptors, and all of a sudden she wants to drink more fluid because her body's telling her that the tonicity of her blood is too heavily concentrated. So if she drinks water, it dilutes it. Always use the example when you're talking about plasma and concentrations, just think about a glass of cordial, and you can make the perfect mix, and then you drink half of it, but then you don't have more cordial, but you just drink more water. And so essentially when you're losing sodium and you're adding more water, you're just diluting it. So
it's a weaker cordial.
Exactly. Yeah. It's weaker concentration of your blood. So with that said, she obviously had that meal, bit of sodium in the dinner meal though as well. You got beef mince, things like that. But if she woke up and her weight was like way up, which is quite common for a lot of athletes, it's because there still is that increase in blood sodium levels. And so as a result of that, your body releases hormones in order for you to more or less absorb more water, because what you're doing with that is it takes fluid from where it has it. So for example, in that intracellular space, and pulls it into the extracellular space so that you can obviously get back to baseline. And then once you start gradually pushing in more fluid, those levels tend to tend to balance out, and then you'll go back to where you were. So everyone's different, man. Sometimes if you get the potassium dose right and you can get enough fluid in the night of, maybe they have a funky weigh in the day afterwards, and the day after that it's usually back to normal. Another good thing, and that's probably why I had the cardio as well, is something that I'm big on, is after when they're doing their cardio, getting them not necessarily in a sweatsuit, but in an environment where they're going to sweat, they're quite warm, so that you can lose a bit of that fluid. And also, obviously, when we're sweating, we're losing sodium as well. Everyone's different, anywhere from 500 to 1,000 megs, depending on the amount of sweat that you're losing per liter. So you're factoring that in, but there's other ways you can do that. Like you could have a really warm bath. Everyone thinks you have to use sauna as a means of trying to clear that out. Like I know we've had one of your athletes who woke up, wasn't in the weight that he needed to have, didn't stick him in a sauna, did some light exercise. He had a warm shower.
And he had a warm shower and just
and we
a little bit of towel wrap, and
then just kept him warm and he was relaxed. It wasn't a hot bath. So it's things like that. When you understand how to manipulate those fluid things, and then literally use the hairdryer to dry all the sweat off him, and what was it, like an hour and a half, and he was where he needed to be.
It's 500 under.
Yeah.
This for fitness cap, was it? Okay.
Yeah, and what was he above? He was, and it wasn't because MG tried to cop him up too much. It was more he was stressing that he wasn't going to make the weight.
Yeah, he was about just over one over on the morning of. Was it one
kilo?
Yeah, 1 to 1.1, something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, and so he managed to pull down. It was by the end of it was almost 2 kilos in that.
Oh wow!
Not by having to do anything drastic.
Yeah.
And he was fine. So
and he did very well that day.
He did. He did. And so for that obviously gets her back to baseline. If her weight was still elevated, I mean, it wasn't, but then you also introduced cardio and you said that you thought maybe that it was a new low weight, but the look was different. And so potentially the weight was different because you dug more. Had you reduced carbohydrate more than where she was previously at baseline?
Back to her lowest point, yeah.
Okay, but was she doing cardio leading into that?
Her last cardio was the week before peak week.
Okay, so potentially as well, if you are then adding cardio and she trained legs, you may have just depleted glycogen saturation levels, that they're a lot lower. So she's got less glycogen on board. Yeah. There's less fluid partition in the muscle.
Yeah, and I think there was some edema still as well.
And that as well. You mentioned that she
was sore as, yeah.
She was sore. And that's one of the biggest things. People think that, if you're sore, it's muscle damage, which isn't the case at all. I think we've talked about this in our mentoring stuff, whereas it's an inflammatory response more or less as a result of fluid that seeps out of that seeps into the cell as a result of reactive oxygen species potentially seeping out of the mitochondria, which pulls fluid in and has that puts that pressure on those nerve endings of your muscle spindles. I know we're getting a little bit off tangent here, but that's basically what causes that inflammatory response. And so the fact that she's purporting that she's feeling soreness and that tissue is tight would suggest that there's an increase of fluid there. And obviously you get that swelling, so to speak, and it's pushing on those nerve endings, which sends that feedback loop that she's got DOMS. Mm-hmm. And so once that dissipates, she has a really good sleep. Maybe she gets a nice massage. And basically, as soon as that fluid leaves the cell, it's like, boom. Yeah. And I'm sure when she hit a new weight, is a lot of her DOMS gone as well?
Yeah, the DOMS have subsided a lot, but the look is very, like for a 200 gram difference in scale weight, the look is...
For sure, but equally, you have to remember as well that when you're getting to high levels of conditioning, the look appreciation per 100 gram of body weight lost is drastically elevated. You could be 100 kilos in your first week of prep, you lose 5 kilos and you look so much worse because you're flat and you're still fat, right? Yeah. But then if you're in prep and you were like, I wake up and I'm 84.5, I'm down 250 grams, it's like, fucking hell, that 250 grams difference, holds so much more, more weight, so to speak, to the look. So,
yeah. And that's why, like, using both is the safe way. It's like, if you just looked at her scale weight, you'd say, oh, she's back to baseline. But when you look at the photos, you know that there was just a little bit more work that needed to be done. But yeah, this Sunday should be a pretty... heavily improved representation, even though it was already so improved. Even some little tweaks to some posing things as well. But I'm really excited for it.
Are you managing the flight time, anything like that? Is it even a concern because it's a short flight? Are you doing anything?
No, it's super short, and she's going to be there 3 days before, so it's not going to. We're just being super strategic about when we're going to run our GTS sessions, so just to make sure that we're doing them as far to the back end of the day to get the most amount of food in as we can, and as much R&R as possible, really. But she's already this week, been on the compression boots, like with everything that we can to aid recovery.
Would you even tell her to just back off posing practice? Because
she's doing a little bit at the start of this week just to correct some of the stuff that was given to her in her feedback.
Yeah.
And then as soon as we feel like that's down pat, we pretty much want to pull it out. Yeah.
So because if it's causing her some soreness,
For sure.
just get
I just think that show day posing to that intensity for that many divisions back to back
it's tough.
is tough. Yeah.
It's really,
And we
really
talk
tough.
about posing endurance all the time, but when you're up there and you're in the heat of the battle, as Scotty says, when you're throwing down, you do not let it go, do you?
No, of course not. So, Scotty, just going back, I don't want to harp on it too long, but would you ever see someone have a lower weigh-in the day after a show? Or is it, if they do weigh in lower, are you thinking maybe I didn't do the right thing on show day?
Potentially. So there's just so many different variables. So if you were someone that stepped on stage, maybe you ran low food, so there's less food going through digestion, and typically you don't eat a lot on show day. And if you're like, you know what, we need it to be sharper, we're not going to have much tonight, you're having some like a chicken salad, something like that, it's light, then potentially there's lower food volume. You may have even been in a deficit, for that particular day and woken up lighter, or you could even be dehydrated if you've gone down that route as well. So sometimes it does happen, but if someone's woken up a lot lighter, then I'd be like, maybe you didn't, and again, it depends on the division, maybe you didn't push in enough food the day prior with carbing up. I guess one of the things with the carb up is you want to allow time to digest what you're eating and be very selective, with the food sources that you're having as well. And obviously the ratios at which you're pushing in carbohydrate. Like I'd love to know what were your baselines that you were running, and then the rates at which you implemented carbohydrate as well. Can you give some examples?
Yeah. So we'd had the fortitude of, I suppose, practicing this many times throughout the prep because it was a reasonably smooth prep. We were ahead of schedule, so we got to have a crack at this a lot.
Mm-hmm.
So her baseline, and again, no one should.
These are bespoke to Ash.
They're
not umbrella guidelines.
Yeah, don't use these recommendations. But we basically started at, say, her baseline was 165.
Carbohydrate.
Yeah, so we ran 165 for 2 days. We took 165 to 225, 225 to 275. We ran 275 twice, and then that was at that point where we were supposed to be topped up. So we were going to go back to like what I would consider a maintenance system, which at that point, I'd calculated it around the 225, but we actually took in 275 again the day before.
So it's 4 days of high carbs?
Yeah. So feeding up, yeah.
Feeding up, yeah.
Yeah. And I thought that what I had approximated at the start of the week based on previous data, I thought I fell a little bit short with how much I actually needed, and we ended up taking a little bit more. Equally on show day, the system that I put together, we took in a little bit more in the morning and meal 2 as well, as well as some extra carbohydrate, 2 or 3 hours out backstage as well via some really simple carbs too.
So how much does she weigh roughly?
44 kilos.
Okay, so she's very light. And what time was she on stage roughly?
So show 2 started at 2. Ash was on at about 3:30.
Okay, so there's a bit of time in that day.
Definitely. So we had 3 meals.
Yeah. Okay.
Plus other stuff that we had backstage too.
Yeah.
So.
Fair enough. Okay. Wow.
So with your intervention this week, I'm guessing you're going to linear load again gradually. Are you going to push that top dosage to say maybe like 310 or 320?
Absolutely. Bag on the money, man. Bag on the money. We have not spoken about this. That's spot on, man. Yeah.
And then from there, see the look and
absolutely
then gradually come back down to you can hold, and then knowing that she did flatten out, that maybe that 220 probably comes up a little bit as well.
Yeah, well, that 220 went up to 275 last week, but it probably got to go even potentially higher this week.
But equally, that would also depend on if you hit that top threshold. If you get that look at the 325,
you don't need it.
You may not need it.
Yeah.
And then also, I'm guessing because you're still feeding a decent amount of carbohydrate, the types and also the times that you're also giving them in as well. Because this is the other thing when we talk about carbohydrate feeding, the 3 T's: total, time, and type. So when you're going to be giving them the types of carbohydrates, the blend between glucose, fructose, and then I can't remember the first two that I said, whichever the third one was.
Yeah.
I said total, time, and type.
Type.
Yeah. So then obviously the amount, if you were to have 70 grams of carbohydrate via crisp and potatoes, that's going to have a fair bit of That's it. That's equivalent to
Yeah.
what, like
700 grams.
750 grams
Yeah,
of
it is.
carbohydrate.
Yeah, it's a lot.
It's a
Yeah.
big-
It's a
yeah.
large, and
Yeah.
that's obviously going to have a lot of distension. So
Yeah,
obviously picking foods that are, that offer a high carbohydrate value per unit serving. So
Yeah.
rice flour, things like that. They're very easy.
Yeah, exactly what we use.
Yeah, sweet.
So I think, we'll just go a little bit harder. Maybe, we were assessing the look multiple times per day, so that won't change.
Mhm.
And I think everything else about the week was really, really good. I think, we put a lot of emphasis into like stress management as well,
Mhm.
good sleep hygiene,
Yep.
making sure that she got ample rest, which definitely made a big difference. When I got there, and I had Maddie with me, who was awesome, by the way. She was just such a great help and a great coach to just help me manage the show day stress.
Mhm.
Between the excitement, the nerves, having so many other competitors around you, and sometimes you can walk into, especially at an IFBB show, you can walk in backstage and the open boys have just been off, and even as a female competitor, you can still stand next to them, look at the size of them, and think to yourself, am I big enough? Like it can happen. So sometimes just show day management of an athlete is really, really important. And I thought we were really big on that, and I think it made a really big difference to the overall energy and the mood they had when they actually stepped on stage.
Yeah. So obviously, this next show you're not going to be there.
No.
So how are you going to manage, knowing whether things are on track or not? Like, what do you do as an online coach?
Yeah. So I suppose we're fortunate enough that we do have athletes in multiple states. So, way ahead of time, knowing that I wasn't going to be able to be there, I have organised one of our TMG athletes who is going to go there. Kristen is going to be
Amazing.
Ash's show day coach for me. And she'll have a very, very detailed plan of everything that needs to be followed. I'll still be available on the phone on FaceTime. I've got another competition. But, I'll be very, very specific about timings, dosages, pump ups, like literally to the point on any show day plan when I'm not there has what the pump up process is in terms of how many reps and how long to do it for and how long to rest in between, and basically just give as much as I can that you should be able to just read it and do it and then check in with me at regular intervals via FaceTime. And yeah,
Awesome.
I mean, I'm going to be sitting by my phone. I was sitting in the crowd while Ash was on, and I was sitting next to Cole. I was actually with Romany and Cole.
Oh yeah.
And Cole said, I don't see myself when I'm watching what competitors I say. You've seen it.
Yeah.
I do get pretty passionate and emotional about it. And I think I heard Cole yell out, "Someone get MG a defib."
Yeah, I can imagine. Because your emotions are really high whenever someone's on stage.
I really do. I really do. I love it. I love it a lot. More so than I feel like when I step on stage for myself.
Yeah.
So that's the one plus about me not being there.
Yeah, you won't need a defib.
I will be able to breathe. I mean, I do have a heart condition, so I've got to be mindful of going into atrial fibrillation.
Yeah.
But no, looking forward to it. I think she's going to present something pretty special, and we know that that's going to be competitive. As it's competitive in VIC, it'll be competitive in SA. So
yeah,
wishing her all the best.
I know we'll move on in a second, but what's her plan after that? Is it nationals?
Yeah,
she did really well, so I assume you'd go to nationals. Yeah. Okay, perfect. Yeah, that's great.
Yeah,
I heard a rumor that she was looking at some other comps as well.
Yeah, I think with Ash. Ash is natural, just in case anyone's wondering. So she is natty. Both girls are. She'd be very, very competitive on any natural stage in any natural federation anywhere. But that wasn't kind of the plan at the start. Not to say that you won't see her standing on a natural stage this year, but at this point in time, it's not penciled in.
And this just goes to show we're NBA directors, but we're not pushing our clients to do the NBA comps. If they don't want to do it, they don't want to do it. It doesn't line up for them or financially, whatever that may be.
Yeah, or it wasn't the initial goal. And
I've got a client this season that's not doing any NBA comps. She's doing 2 other feds. Like that's the way it is.
Me too.
Yeah. Oh, you do? Yeah. There you go.
Totally.
Yeah. So, all right. So,
but don't all your clients do better because it's NBA?
Oh yeah. We're paying all the judges across all the federations.
We've got a whole episode on that.
So that day is going to be a busy day. It's the 6th. Are you talking about the 6th? Sunday the 6th?
Yeah. So I've got a powerlifting comp in the morning with an athlete of mine. At Apex, yeah. So I got Ben doing it's good because that show itself, they've actually split it, natties and enhance. So they're going to do the flights, natural competitors flight, which is great because anyone that's
such a long day.
Yeah, anyone that's the tested flights is the morning flight, which is great. So it starts at 9.
They do all 3 lifts.
So what actually happens is that first one will do their lifts.
Yeah.
And in previous comps, when they don't separate the natural and the enhanced competitors, you've got a guy walking out, he's going to do a 130 bench, which is freaking amazing. And then the next guy who's enhanced steps up and does a 170. But the guy and people in the crowd don't understand because it doesn't come up on the screen enhanced.
So, you can usually tell though when you see someone stepping up to pull like 350.
The thing is like, as a competitor, to be able to, look at what we do for our business and, all the stuff we're implementing just to keep it an even playing field. It's nice for them to be able to stand up and compete against people kind of in that same playing field. So this is the first one that we've done in that style. So I'm looking forward to that. And then you guys are away.
Yeah, we've got the mega workshop in Brizzy at Stafford. So super excited. Yeah, it's come up so fast. And then the following weekend is the actual show.
We go back to
back.
Yeah, Brizzy on Sunday, and then we're on Gold
Coast
Coast on Friday.
The following day.
Yeah.
The following week, yeah. But looking forward to the mega workshop to see all the Queensland athletes. Obviously, we haven't been up there this season at all.
No, we haven't. This will be our first one up.
So, yeah, I'm looking forward to, and also looking forward to meeting all the posing coaches that have run so many incredible workshops throughout the whole season to help us out. So I'm excited to meet all the posing coaches that have helped us so much, and some of our pro athletes that are going to be there, and also the athletes that are competing as well. So if anyone is free on Sunday the 6th, come to Stafford. We're going to be there. Scotty said he's going to be signing autographs too. So
I love Stafford.
Stafford's awesome.
You do.
Yeah.
They should name a shake after you there, to be honest.
Yes, well,
there's salted caramel, just ice and water, Scotty Morel special.
Lots of ice.
Yeah.
I have one for you too, bro.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it.
I want to go into this question because we're just been in the same topic, but let's just kind of quickly cover it off. How do you know how to peak a client? Front load, back load, mid load, linear load, etc. How do you know how to peak a client on show day? What should they eat? When should they eat? How long before? Like, there's a lot in that.
It's like a whole episode on its own.
There's a bit to tease out.
There's a bit to tease out. Could we give a bit of a short, sharp, typical approach for majority of athletes? Will we say that majority is a backload, which is loading close to the show? Yep.
Yeah, I think in an ideal world, you've reached your conditioning checkpoint. You're happy with where you're at. In the earlier part of the week, you would be potentially depleting before you replete, so that you get that the supercompensation effect where you can essentially partition more carbohydrate and basically take up more. So think about your muscles as like a balloon, and so with more carbohydrate you can fill it out. In terms of the dosages and the amounts, everyone's different, but if you think about it, if you've got a bigger guy, he's probably going to need a little bit more carbohydrate. If you've got a smaller girl, she's probably not going to need all that much. I think too many athletes use as an opportunity to just eat ad libitum and, send it, which is the wrong approach.
Or post how much carbohydrate they're putting.
Yeah, it's almost like a badge of honor. Like,
do you remember how many 1,000 gram carb posts there used to be 3-4 years ago?
When I see that, I'm like, people don't, like, if you think about it from a, how much tissue, fat-free mass they actually have pertaining to skeletal mass, there's not going to be I don't know any natties that are going to be able to actually uptake that amount of carb, like that are going to need that much to fill out. Especially those dosages. You're talking about someone like a Mike Pearson, who, if anyone doesn't know him, he's probably one of my favorite amateur IFBB bodybuilders, because he is enormous. If you don't know who he is, go and have a look at him. He is ridiculous. He makes like anyone that looks like they're big look like a neophyte that's never even touched a dumbbell. He's that big. And so someone like that probably needs that amount of carbohydrate. I think he even has more. I think he had it was like 10 or 11,000. So that's what Dean was like topping him up with, to fill him up. Wow. This is a guy that was on stage at like $122 or something. He's enormous.
Yeah, wowzers. Okay.
So those sort of amounts, it's just like, it's unnecessary and it's silly.
Yeah.
But also, you're not going to be able to partition that amount of carbohydrate anyway. So I think you would want to have an idea of roughly your size. You and your coach should know that, roughly where that line is.
Yeah.
And then typically you're looking at probably, let's say the show's on the Saturday, it might be you're depleting Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, and then you would run a higher carbohydrate. So it might be, I don't know, say 450 grams on a Wednesday, and then you might hit your top amount, which is like, say, 550 on a Thursday. Then I would usually pull that back down. Again, you're looking at photos, you're looking at footage, you're asking them, what was your perception of your pump? Did you feel tight? How was it? How long did it last? And then you're pulling down on the Friday. And then usually for me, I'm starting to pull back for the later part of the day, so that there's not much food going into digestion, so that we can keep the stomach nice and light, waking up almost feeling hungry. And then you'll usually use a higher fat diet earlier in the week when you're low carbohydrate, so you can top up intramuscular triglycerides. And that can make a difference as well, because that does help to enhance one's look. And then usually a higher fat meal the night before, again, to make sure that those intramuscular triglyceride stores are topped up, but also to just help everything stick and sort of hold that look. And then for the most part, if you've done your job and someone's like, oh, I had 1,000 grams of carbs over 2 days and I was too flat on show day. For me, most of the time, people just don't pump up hard enough. They don't give themselves enough time and pump up with enough intensity. If you think about some of the crazy pumps you have when you have your refeeds or your diet breaks, you're about an hour in and all of a sudden you've got this crazy pump. But you're training hard. You're moving loads, lat pull downs, you're pressing, you're rowing. Versus on show day, you've got some resistance bands and you're doing fucking push-ups. Do you know what I mean? So I think not enough attention, respect given to the pump up itself to actually blow up, and you should feel like you're borderline sweating. You can feel it and you can see it like in the flesh. So I think they're probably the standard baseline ones where you're gonna 2 or 3 days depleting, 2 to 3 repleting, depending on the time you have, and then you want to have a day so that ideally you've almost spilled the day before, so that you can wash that off. You have that last training session. And then you know that you're going to wake up pretty much on the money on show day.
And on show day, it's not a lot of food.
Not a lot of food at all. Again, enough to just satiate you, fluid. As you know, you guys know I like to use gels because you can get in carbohydrate. You can get the right blend between glucose and fructose. So it's very friendly to get across the intestinal membrane into the blood, and also is enough to just keep everything where it needs to be, because you're basically just restoring liver glycogen on the morning of. And then when it's time to pump up, you might again push in an acute dose of maybe 30 grams of carbs. You give that, that acute bolus of sodium, you start to push that in, and then you start to see the look come to life, provided that the pump up is there. And that they're hydrated as well. You don't want to when people say you got to dry out and it doesn't make any sense. Don't try and dry out. Don't pull your water, and especially don't do that, and don't pull your sodium when you're trying to low carbohydrate, because you require both of those things.
You need both those things.
I think even the misconception is what people's understanding of what drying out is. And I think for the most part, it's like people topping up with carbohydrate, filling up with extra glycogen, that muscle filling and pushing the skin, and they're drying out. But it's who I can't remember who said it, was like, just fucking get conditioned. Like more people just focus on getting like.
This is the thing. If you get inside out condition, you don't need to dry out, because you're dried out all the time.
Yeah, that's it. There you go. That's
True.
Can we make that the next t-shirt?
Get
conditioned and you dry all the time. Let's go with that. Wet your whistle, Scotty. Go on.
You like that, don't you?
Like that.
Wet your whistle.
Wet your whistle.
Do you want to tell us?
Tell everyone.
Well, actually, we got a question. We got a question saying, "Is MG sneakily competing?"
Yeah, no, he's not. He's
set the scene for everyone. Why do you find that?
I sent Scotty some check-in photos at about 5 a.m. the other week of just like a front and a back shot. And I just floated the idea of potentially doing the season B IFBB natural shows.
The mid-years.
I sent him the photos and I said, "What do you think? Shall we do it?" And Scotty's response was, "Go on, have at it. Wet your whistle, son." So I've not heard that too. Maybe listeners have heard it a lot more, but I Googled it. And it's like to go and have your first alcoholic beverage. So I wrote back, I'm like, don't drink, bro. So, but you know, anyway. But
literally,
yeah. Like, in my head, I was like, does he not know that I'm saying like,
well, I mean, if I'm going to have at it, I need you to get me there. But no, I'm not comparing. I've just stayed a little lean. I spoke to Scotty about this while we were away, but rolling around at this weight at the moment, doing everything that we're doing, and not having to overfeed with how busy my schedule is, it's just easier.
Yeah,
really easy, man. Like, this is easy for me to sustain. I'm not suffering. I'm not trying to diet. I'm just not eating enough because I'm so busy. I'm eating enough, but not enough to grow.
So, yeah.
And
you're in an unintentional deficit.
Pretty much, yeah. Where there's days where I'm probably a little bit above it, and for the most part, I'm doing 24,000 steps a lot of days from work. So,
oh Jesus.
Yeah, because you got to think there's 2 nights at Optimum Nutrition. Okay. I'm there from 4:30 in the morning till 1, and then 4 till 9 p.m.
And that's what I mean. Like, even that weekend, it's funny. We both said on that Monday, my weight was a kilo down, yours was, and we had Subway twice, like foods I would never normally eat.
Yeah.
Eating like rice crackers. We're eating, what do we, and
We cooked chicken mince and rice, but we had a family bag of rice
yeah,
each.
it was,
Like it was a pole like this.
it was a normal Scott Tupperware bowl.
Yeah, it was huge.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah, but that in comparison to what you would usually eat, because of how much expenditure you're doing,
Yep.
yeah, it offsets that.
Let's move on to the next one. How long do you wait to make changes to food or output when a client hits a plateau? Let's think of this as a fat loss phase, not a growth phase, because that can be taken both ways, to be honest. But let's assume that it's during
It'd be
fat
fat loss.
fat loss phase. How long do you normally wait? If you've done an adjustment, you know, they've implemented that adjustment and there's some movement, but then it plateaus. How long do you let them sit in a plateau before you make another adjustment?
I think you need to look at, like, in context, how, like, what is the plateau? Have you been seeing, 1% of body weight per week, and now all of a sudden you're at 0.2% of body weight? Because more often than not, it's not necessarily it may not be the adjustment that you've made. It may be like, oh, now we're pulling out another 200 calories or 150 calories, thinking that's just going to get you this crazy huge response. If you think about, for context, say a kilo of mixed human tissue is around 6,500 calories. And so if you're taking out an extra, say you go aggressive and you pull 200 calories, in the scheme of things, that's 1,400 calories. So you're talking about maybe 250 grams of mixed human tissue that you're looking at for that week. But then the trade-off for that is, and the other thing that you need to look at is, well, what is your, like, habitually day to day, what is your day like? Are you leaning more? Are you deciding to sit down because you get tired? Are you not walking? Are you doing your 10,000 steps now, but you go for a walk, and then once you've done your walk, you sit on your ass all day? Versus you're gardening, you're doing the dishes, you're cleaning the house, you're going to do the shopping, little things like that you can do in prep, which are, you might think, it's so hard to go to the supermarket. Whereas my brain is like, I'm in prep, I'll park further away, I'll take as long as I can, I'll go and do as much house domesticated stuff that I need to do, because I know that shit needs to get done anyway.
Yeah.
And when you're in that moment, you're not really thinking about it. Do you know what? I'll wash the car too, rather than go and take it to the tunnel. Things you enjoy doing it, there's that element of that, but you're expending more calories doing that, and you're not really making a huge effort to go and do it. You're just doing a task that needs to be completed. Versus, I would say that probably more often than not, most people aren't tapped into that mentality that it's just like, I do what I need to do. I hit my steps. How I hit them and how that contributes to my NEAT throughout the day, they're very, very different.
So there could be a reason for the plateau where it's not the plan needs to change. It's more so they need to change.
You need to change.
Yeah, what they're doing to execute the plan. But let's just say that they're doing everything as per they normally were, and they're plateaued out. So how long will you let them sit there before you be like, all right, cool, let's actually make an adjustment?
Well, the other thing is adherence there, like, because, and that's where sometimes if you're tracking, and this is why the back end cognitive fatigue is a real thing. And so it's very easy for you to make a mistake. If you're not following something that's very rigid, then you open up the possibility of an error and a mistake. But if we're saying that all that's great, it's hunky-dory, I think you got to look at your timeline. If you're starting to fall behind, when's your next checkpoint? If you're behind that, then you need to make another adjustment. But if you've had a plateau for, I don't know, a week, 10 days straight, and then you make an adjustment and there's still no move, something doesn't add up.
Something's not right. Yeah, okay.
Something doesn't add up. Yeah.
So because we do check-ins weekly, normally if it's been about a week and everything else is fine and dandy and they're doing everything they need to do, then I'll just make an adjustment. Yeah, if it's been a full week of a plateau.
And usually, I don't know about you boys, but if I make an adjustment, and let's say we're at the business end, we're sub 12 weeks out, I'll usually remind them, make sure your data's going in every day.
Yes.
Not, I don't want to have a look at it next week, because in 3 or 4 days' time, I want to see if the wheels are starting to turn, and I can jump in and see what was steps like, what was perceived energy availability, where was hunger. Because if I'm like, hunger has gone up again and adherence is there, you've done this, you've done that, I'm like, just be patient, because sometimes you'll wait, and I see a lot of this with guys and bigger guys, wait, and then it's like you'll see 1.5 kilos randomly just come off, and then you'll just see a snowball effect.
Yeah.
So
that's the same when you make an adjustment and nothing happens.
Yeah.
For a couple of days, and you're like, it's not fucking working. Just wait, just be patient. It'll
this is the art of coaching, and this is where this is something that the textbooks can't teach you. Knowing when to push and when to pull, and also having that understanding of knowing your athlete and knowing that, when you've had a prep before, we know that at this stage, this is going to happen, and also communicating that we're going to make the drop. Don't have a meltdown if on Tuesday that things aren't like moving drastically. Like, just give it some time to work. Prioritize sleep. Prioritize hydration.
Yep.
You know, just try and keep all of your variables very consistent and just be patient.
Yep. Anything on that?
No, I think one of the things I've seen happen a lot over the years is like I'll have someone who's prepping, tracking their own macros. Let's say it's like the very start of prep. They'll hit a plateau. It's no response. I'll send them back a meal plan and be like, all right, eat to this. Exactly the same calories as what you're saying you're on. 2 weeks on the meal plan, 1.25%, 1.24%.
Yeah.
So it's like, so as soon as you make things really consistent and, you know, you take away that margin for error, all of a sudden the results tend to come. So what is like, I agree with you so much when you say something's not adding up.
We saw that with Cole's client.
Karina.
Karina,
I saw her yesterday and I was like,
she's looking good.
Yeah, you look crazy good. Like, so yeah. So take away as many variables as you can as a coach. So.
Yeah.
And a plateau is not a plateau unless everything's perfect.
Exactly.
Technically. So
yeah. All right, let's end on this one. Are Scotty's legs days really that hard? I've seen everyone and TMG post about him, but what separates his from others?
Intensity. His intensity.
Not my personal ones.
The ones that you program, obviously.
Oh, I thought the way he trains. I'm like, just fucking watching train legs, and that'll answer the question pretty quickly.
What are yours harder than others?
I don't know. They're just legs.
You just tell them to train hard.
Yeah, I just say this is just a Scott Morrell leg day.
I also think like
have at it.
If you wet your whistle.
Wet your whistle.
Like we've obviously done his leg days. If you look at his leg days, they're great leg days. It's not necessarily that his leg days have more volume or more harder exercise. I think he just promotes and encourages really hard work and training really close to failure with good technique. Do that no matter what the program is. It should be really, really hard. But I think the main difference, it's not like he's got an exercise that nobody knows about. He's just great at making people work really fucking hard.
Yeah.
I think there's like, if I think and reflect on it, there's probably in everyone's check-in, there'll usually be 3 or 4 exercises that I'll reference that this is what we're looking for. And it may usually be a big combat. It could be a deadlift, or it could be a hip thrust, or it could be a squat where this is what we had. And I want you to I want you to lean into that sympathetic branch of the autonomic nervous system and just send it. You want to feel like you could be in a state where, you know, you're not Michael Chimboli, who's calm, cool, collected. You're someone who could slap MG and feel good about it. You know what I mean? Like, that's the intensity.
I probably need it, man.
Bit of a slap. Yeah.
Probably need it.
A little scuff. Yeah. There's no secret magic source. I think it's just that, just emphasizing effort when it needs to be given. I think so many people, just in bodybuilding in general, I think lots of coaches probably lean into this, but you need to try and, if you have someone that's a really lovely person, you have to find something inside of them that makes them tick. And this is what makes good coaching. You've got to find what makes people tick and find something that they can respond to and relate to pursue a different effort. Like if I'm having a conversation with MG, I couldn't just talk with you boys now. If we're at the gym and then I'm going to go over there and I'm going to do my deadlift, I need to be in a state where I can't talk to anyone in the lead up to it, because the half an hour like leading into that moment is thinking about that lift, going through it, the intensity.
Yeah, I've trained with you. I'll tell you what he does. He fucking paces up and down like he's about to kick somebody's head in. Like, but that's and that's why if I'm training with him and he's doing that, I'm not trying to interrupt him in those couple of minutes before he's set, because I know the headspace that he's getting into. Yeah. I'll let him do his lift, finish his exercise, and then chat about whatever bullshit. But like that's the mentality that it takes, is like whatever you've got to do to heighten yourself to fucking get after it, then if you got to walk up and down like you're about to stab side, you do, you go, man.
It isn't making me old, but I'm always thinking like the Waterboy movie, where he has to get into that headspace to tackle the shit out of people.
Yeah, like you start telling me that V is better than Monster, and all of a sudden I just start to get real irritated.
Pepsi Max is better.
All right, we'll leave it there.
Wet your whistle, son.
Wet your whistle. If anyone's going to do anything this week after the episode, is wet your whistle.
Wet your whistle.
Yes. All right, thanks, boys. Thanks, everyone, for listening, and we'll chat to you.
See you guys at the shows.
Done.